So, we will start by listening to the rapporteur, to Thierry. He is going to summarize what he listened, what he catch from the session, and then we will have a discussion, a dialogue between the Minamisoma people and the Norwegian, our Norwegian friends, because I passed by them during the break, and they are all burning to give some answers to dialogue with you about your questions. So, Thierry, first.
Thank you. Yeah, so I will try to be brief. And first of all, I would like to say that it's not an exhaustive summary. This is some key points which have occurred both from the session this morning and from the session this afternoon. First of all, what I heard is that Minamisoma is a large city with ocean area, mountains area, and it's confronted to a complex situation with a diversity of areas in terms of level of contamination and evacuation status, as well as concerning the effect of the tsunami. And this have large impact on the situation of the community. I will give you I share in 5 sections. The first one, really brief, is what we heard about the evolution of the city. Although 66% of the inhabitants are back in Minamisoma, the city is confronted to a disequilibrium in age group, and mainly with regard to the people around 30 to 40 years old. There is also large disturbance in the economic activities. Several thousands of jobs were lost. And also another aspect is that the infrastructure, notably in terms of transport, have been partly destroyed due to the tsunami, and that create differences also in the city. Then I will spend some time on the second part, which are some issues which are at stake. First, for the families and the citizens, and second, from the point of view of the authority. Concerning the families and citizens, you express a complex situation with complex decisions which are to come back or not, and you say that it's not only based on radiation factors but also other factors need to be taken into account. But for family, you have a diversity. For some families, Minamisoma is the only place where to live. For others, they came back, but they still wonder if this is a good decision. And others have too much question without answer and prefer not to come back. You also express a series of different questions. Can we trust the information on radiation? How can we understand the jargon which is used? Can we get information about what is safe or what is dangerous? How to get enough confidence to trust this information? How to be sure that the contamination will not be spread in the environment, and that the hotspot of contamination will be identified and then decontaminated. Then you have also a series of questions with regard to the economic and social activities. Do we have the possibility to get a job? As it was mentioned previously, there was a lot of human dimensions which have been expressed, notably, can I get married coming from the contaminated area? Can I get children? What about the responsibility with regard to the future of our children? And all that have an impact of individual behavior. Some people are hungry, anxious, and sometimes demoralized. There is also a feeling to be far from a shared vision of the situation. And to do that, there is a need. This is a long process to recover from this situation. there is also still a fear about the possibility of another accident, and some question how to be prepared if an accident occurs. Is it possible to get manual prepared by the expert and to diffuse the information? And how can we take actions and protect the family in case of a new accident? For the authorities, I just put some few points. The first element which occurred was how to provide trustful information and means to the inhabitants to make themselves their decision and to make them trusting the authority. The second aspect is how to promote activities in Minami Soma, providing sustainable jobs. How to rebuild the community in Minami Soma and to provide similar capacity to the different parts of the city. And finally, one element which has been expressed both by the authority and by citizens is how to develop projects allowing people to live and smile again in Minami Soma. And the question of smiling was quite strong. The third part is concerns the measurement and decontamination. We expressed so many elements with regard to that. First of all, there is still a feeling of distrust in the measurement performed by the government. From the citizen point of view, some measurement or most of the measurement have to be done by themselves. There is also the uncertainty about the effects of radiation, and some scientists say it's okay, while others say the contrary. But you also say that decontamination is a starting point to recover. Maybe it's not an end in itself, but it's the starting point. But to do that, both the citizen and the authority say that there is a need to develop local expertise. And at the beginning, you were confronted to the lack of guidance with regard to the decontamination process. You also say that it's difficult to repair the houses and rebuild new ones. This is also a long-term process. And finally, there is also this question of finding location for temporary storage, which is a crucial issue to have safe location and to be sure that it's accepted and well discussed with the local population. And for that, the authorities start to organize dialogue with local community to find solutions. Then the fourth part of my summary concerns some initiatives which have been expressed this afternoon, notably both from Minami Soma area, but also from other areas that you quoted during the discussion and the round table. First, we can notice the creation of Odaka workers' base to favor exchange and training at the service of local citizens. There is also work of the NGO Einstein and the involvement of scientists and experts as well as citizens themselves to help understanding and performing the measurements and to discuss the issue of health effect. There is also the involvement of some media to report about the situation and give access to the information. There is the experience from Swetsugi regarding the measurements made by the citizens themselves and discussion on the situation together at the community level to identify possible solutions to improve the situation. We also report the experience from Kanagawa to provide access to information to the citizens and to create places of dialogue, which have been quoted as quite important. And finally, there is also the experience from Norway to overcome the situation, set up protective measures, and, as it was mentioned, to promote the quality of some specific production from affected area. And that lead to the question how to regain community pride. Then, a few points to finish concerning the expectation for the future. You said during the day that it's difficult to have a clear picture of what could be the future. It's difficult to build a shared vision, but for this perspective there is a need to create exchange and to discuss together. And there is a willingness to favor places of dialogue, such as the meeting today. It's also important to develop education program and also to create the condition to feel positive about the future. There is also the wish of the authority to develop an industrial complex in Minamisoma and to increase the jobs which are proposed. And there is the wish to develop specific activities related to food and energy to provide a future for the next generation. So this is the key element which occur during the day that I noticed, but maybe you have some comments or other proposals.
Well, thank you very much, Thierry. Any comment? Any reaction? No questions? Okay, in that case, thank you. It was a way to summarize the day. I think you mentioned all the key issues. It will be very useful to have this written down for preparing the conclusions and recommendations of the dialogue. Thank you very much, Thierry, for your contribution. And now we have 45 minutes for discussion, and I will start immediately with a specific dialogue between some people and the Norwegian people. And I will ask sorry, an interruption from Okay, so I was very optimistic and speaking about 45 minutes, but Professor Niwa, as usual, told me, came back to reality, you know, it will be only 30 minutes. Okay, no, but anyway, we will have time. I will ask our Norwegian friends to react to this question about why are you seems to be more focused on your life and on your activities and your business than on radiation. So, who would like to start? Yes?
Thank you for the challenge in the Norwegian about cultural differences and clean, safe food. First of all, I will say thank you for all your fine comments about Norwegian goat cheese. It's really warmed my heart. Of course, there are differences between Japanese and Norwegian. Also, cultural and political, I think. But I don't know very much about Japanese's focus on their own health. But I can say that Norwegian also have focus on their health. And more perhaps. It seems like that if you read the two biggest newspapers in Norway. I think we have to remember that what's happened in Norway is about 30 years ago. Quite a difference between people's knowledge then in Norway. Perhaps you had too little knowledge about this to be afraid enough. But I can say for myself, I had a girl on 1.5 years, and I had another girl 1 month old. They were girls, they're going to have babies of their own one day. And of course, we tried to find out all over what will this situation mean for our girls and our family. So we was really afraid, and it was so close that we left the area. I can assure you we are really concerned about our health and about our children. To say a little bit more about Norwegian generally, I think that it seems so. In crisis, for Norwegian, it seems that acting is a very important way to handle your own fear. We have a newer situation in the 11th of July 3 years ago. It was very, very clear that it was very easy for the Norwegians to gather around all the Norwegians. We have only 5 million people in Norway, so and we are a young nation. We are gathering around how the task of how we, as quick as possible, can solve and decrease the situation. And I think that will happen if we have another crisis. So the question about safe food, and that's I give another question back. What is safe food? Do we have enough focus on other pollutions in our world that infect our food we eat every day? But in my case, I can guarantee that because I produce what I produce in my area, I don't think there are any food that control any more than what we produce. And documentation is all the way. And it's not only by the authorities, but me as a producer also have to have this control system and documentation for everything I do. So we have the strongest authorization for our dairy, and that means a lot in the right to have documentation for everything we do in the production and in the product in the end. So I think you have 3 important words in the session 3. It's working together and actions. And I think Norwegian very often seems to manage to work together in crisis, and we are often do the action very quick and very early to handle our own fear in that special situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, was it a collective statement, or anyone your own statement? So, anyone from first, you ask the question. You ask the question. I'd like to have your reaction about the comment.
はい、ありがとうございました。大変口ぶりからも自信を持って行動なさっているということがとてもよく感じられて大変参考になりました。 ただもう一つ追加の質問ですが、例えばその時に特に汚染をされた地帯の中でやはりその土地を離れてしまった人というのはノルウェーの場合はおいでだったのでしょうか。
Nobody was evacuating, but some stopped with sheep production, but not from the radioactivity. It was from beer and so on. Yeah. Not in our area, but
in our area, some few people stopped with sheep production.
Anyone left from the area? No. The question is anyone left?
No one left their homes.
わかりました。Thank you very much.
As we are talking about the Norwegian situation, maybe it would be good if, Inge, you could say a few words about a question that was raised this morning about the decontamination. And I think there was a question about what have you done for decontamination, and I don't think the answer was that clear. Could you clarify that, because I think this is a very important point.
Yes, I can say some words about that. We have not done decontamination in Norway at the same way that you do here in Japan, by taking away the upper part of the soil. In the agriculture area, in the closest part of the fields to the farms, we have been deep plowing down the radioactivity to lower than 10 centimeters down. And after that plowing, we have used fertilizer, especially potassium fertilizer, that prevent the radioactivity to get into the plants and to the animal feed. And if that's not enough, we had used this Persian blue cesium binder in different ways, on salt licks, in concentrate, and also in tablets in the rumen, to prevent the contamination, the cesium, to go further from the stomach, from the animals, and into the meat or to the milk. So you have several levels of stopping the contamination going into the food chain. And of course we have also had programs on whole body counting on the groups that are most affected in Norway, so that we can have a control and have done measurements on the dose for these people.
Thank you, Inge, for this information. But from what I know about your situation, like the situation around Chernobyl, I mean, the main concern was on food, on the contamination of foodstuff, and trying to stop the contamination to reach the people. We have to consider that here in Japan there is also at the moment still high level of external irradiation, and that has to be taken into account. It would be interesting just to have information about the level, how long external irradiation was an issue in Norway.
It was not very long. Of course, we could have, of course, done more mapping of external dose rates in this area. But radiation, the contamination in Norway was most in the mountain area and not very much in the urban areas. So it was much in the farmland. And of course we have done some dose rate measurements, but they were never evaluated to be dangerous for the people living in the area. So that's the reason that we were focusing very much on food and internal contamination.
Thank you. Any comments from the participants? Any question you would like to raise by the end of this first day? Yes, please.
宮川と申します。私は小中学校の放射線教育に関わることが中心で活動しているんですが、今日のここの場でちょっと確認させていただきたいんですけども、南相馬の今日はご関係の皆さんで酪農家の方からのご発言はなかったんですね。日本では避難してしまったために飼っていた家畜を屠殺しなければいけないという事実がありました。でノルウェーの今の皆さん方は土地を離れていく方がいらっしゃらないということでしたので、羊やトナカイに対してきれいな餌を与えることでその生存を維持されたように今私受け止めたんですけれども、福島の皆さんの中にはそういった家畜をそういう形で失われた方もいらっしゃったんですけれども、そういう家畜を一緒に連れて避難できないために管理できない存在として屠殺しなければならなかったような事例っていうのはノルウェーの方にはあったんでしょうか。
No, it wasn't because we were not evacuating any areas. But as Neila said before today, we had to some of the meat was too radioactive the first slaughtering season, and so the reindeer meat had to be thrown away from the first season before we established the countermeasures for feeding the animals clean before slaughtering, and also to use cesium binders to prevent the cesium to go into the milk. And, yeah.
Have you slaughtered sheep and goats as well? Because the question was.
Yeah, it's in both in the milk from cows and from goat, and of course the sheep. We have the sheep in the mountain in the summer, and when we take them home for slaughtering, they have been fed for weeks with clean fodder to get rid of the radioactivity. It takes about 30 days, half time. So, as we heard earlier, they were fed for 14 weeks, so it's a quite long time with food from another part of the country or on concentrate.
Thank you. So, you want to make a comment? Yes?
Yeah. Jeg kan fortelle litt hvordan jeg tenker litt etter Tsjernobyl.
少し私はチェルノビル後、その事情について、考えたことについて紹介したいと思います。
Selvsagt så lytta vi på myndighetene sine kostholdsråd og prøvd så godt vi kunne å leve etter dem.
政府からの、食事に関しての、勧めと相談はもちろん、聞いてましたけれども、
Og hvis en setter seg ned og ser på seg selv, så oppdager en fort at å leve av det er livsfarlig.
そんなことをあまり考えると生きることは本当に危険なことだと思ってしまいます。
Hver dag så er det noen som ligger på dur og prøver å ta deg. Det kan være bakterier, det kan være alt mulig rart, bilulykker osv. osv.
毎日、自分の命なくなるぐらい危険なことはそれぞれありますけれども、交通事故でありバクテリアの、汚染でもありますけれども、
Så jeg har da prøvd å eliminere ut mest mulig slikt. Når jeg kjører snøscooter, når jeg arbeider til fjells, så bruker jeg hjelm.
その恐れはもちろん避けたいので、できる限りは、避けていましたけれども、例えば、スクーター、雪上に飛べるスクーターを乗るときには必ずヘルメットをかぶってます。
Når jeg kjører bil, så prøver jeg å bruke bilbelte.
車乗るときにはもちろんシートベルトも使っています。
Og ellers så prøver jeg å leve da litt sunt, da. Drikk minst mulig alkohol, for eksempelvis.
ある程度健康的に生活は送ってますけれども、アルコールはある程度飲むことなど。
Og jeg er fryktelig fornøyd med meg selv.
私は自分に対しては大変満足しています。
At jeg greier alt.
そんなことできることは本当に偉いだと自分に、褒めています。
Samtidig da så prøver jeg å finne ting jeg kan glede meg over i morgen.
同時に明日、喜ぶできることを探しています。
Så når jeg kommer hjem nå, så skal jeg dra på fjellet og fiske fersk fisk da. Det er noe som jeg har gledet meg et helt år for å få spise.
ここから離れてお家に帰ったら、私は山の方に行って魚を釣ることはすごく大変楽しみにしています。それは1年間、ずっと楽しみにしていることです。
Og når det begynner å bli grønt i fjellet, så drar jeg til fjells og plukker de første grønne vekstene. Det er da en spesiell vekst. Matsyre heter den.
春が来たらちょっとだけ緑が生えてきて、その最初の、生えてきた部分を、山で取ってて、それは食事に使う。
Og når det blir ordentlig sommer, så er det jordbær som jeg gleder meg til å spise.
夏になったらいちごを食べることは、大変楽しみです。
Så jeg har noe å glede meg til hele året.
一年中常に楽しみがあります。
Så radioaktivitet, det er ikke det jeg fokuserer mest på.
だから私は放射能に関してはあんまり、フォーカスをしていません。
Jeg vet at det er skadelig og ikke det beste å være i kontakt med dem, men når jeg har greid å kjøre bilbelte, bruke hjelm og drikke mindre alkohol, så synes jeg har gjort en kjempejobb for meg selv.
放射能は、完全安全なことではなく、避けるべきだと分かってますけれども、いろいろな他の恐れに対して対策してきて、私は今で、元気にしてますので、私は本当に頑張ってきましたと自分を褒めています。
Thank you, Mr. Joma, for your philosophy of living. I think this is very important. But you are a lucky man because you live in the mountains, in a place which is still close to nature. You are, you know, many of us, we are living in big cities, and we have not exactly the same perspective maybe as you have. But thank you very much, because thanks to you, it makes us thinking about what is the basic of life, what are our roots, and what we have to get in perspective all the time, even if we live in big cities and in laboratories. I mean, this is very important. Well, I think we are coming close to the end of this day, but there is another question, another point.
No, it's just a comment. It's a happy ending for Norwegian, so I wish this happy ending to Fukushima people as well. 安心して殺してください。
So maybe a last comment or a last question in the room. Okay, and also there will be two last questions. Okay.
東京から来た新井と言います。ノルウェーの方に一つお聞きしたいのは、一番不安だった時に対話をしたり支えになってくれたのは政府の方、あるいは家族、教会、趣味の仲間、それはどうだったのか、できるだけ具体的に教えていただければ参考になるのでよろしくお願いします。
Jeg tror nordmenn har en grunnleggende i seg selv, og det å klare seg selv. Vi er veldig opptatt av at først og fremst må vi håndtere ting selv. Det er typisk norsk.
ノルウェー人は、基本的に自分でなんとか自分でできることがすごく、国民的な側面なんですけれども、援助を受け取ってもやっぱり自分でやること。
Men vi fikk veldig god hjelp av norske myndigheter etter hvert. Ikke til å begynne med, men etter hvert. Og vi har mye å takke Statens strålevern for den jobben de gjorde i forhold til det behovet vi har for å forstå hva det her er.
最初は政府や、県からあんまりサポートはありませんでしたが、そのうちに少しずつ保証と援助はありました。その上には、今日いらしている、ノルウェーからの、保証に関しての研究室、は大変お世話になっています。
Vårt lokale næringsmiddeltilsyn syns det gjorde en veldig bra jobb, og vi hadde et veldig bra samarbeid. Jeg hørte på lokalbefolkningen.
地域の、食料品に関する安全の、局っていう、政府の、方は、農家たちの話はよく聞いておりまして、大変味方になってました。
Thank you. So the last question. Yes, no?
京都女子大学の水野と申しますが、日本語の方で聞いていてかなり難しい深刻な問題だなと思ったことがあって、それは分断という言葉なんですけれども、その地理的 物理的にですね、交通機関とか、あるいはエリア的な分断とか、利用の仕方とか、さまざまな外的要因があり、そして結果的にその、逆になんとかこうしなきゃって思う必要があるぐらいの状況があったというふうに理解したんですが、先ほどのティエリー・シュナイダーさんのサマリーの中では、その個別のその現象として、分断につながるような現象の、紹介があったんですけれども、そのキーワードとしての分断という言葉があまり出てこなかったような気がしたので、そのサマリーに入れた方がいいのではないかと思うので、ちょっとコメントをいただきたいんですが、難しい問題なのであまり理解はないんですが、しかしよろしくはできないと思いますので、お願いします。
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I put a few points for closing the day, and the first point was Minamisoma obviously is facing a very complex situation. And just after I said, why? Because of divisions. And you perfectly said physical, social, but also mental. And someone said during the day, it's very difficult to express emotions. Because people are full, after an accident like Fukushima, people are full of emotions, different emotions. And these emotions depend about the situation in the family, the own history of the person, about the social environment, and so on. There are many, many factors. And it's extremely difficult to express emotions. People generally don't express emotions easily. And I think this is probably divisions, people full of emotions and not able to express these emotions so easily. This is probably an explanation, a way of trying to understand the situation. And I was asking myself, if you think about someone who is trapped by such a situation and with the radioactive environment and all the discussions and all the concerns about the children, about the future, how to try to find a way to get out of this amazing difficulty, complexity. And there was someone said during the morning, he said people want to know about the level of radiation, about the risk, about how contaminated. This is one of the key questions. And when they turn the face to the experts or to the authorities about these questions, they just answer very, very various different answers. So it's not something which is black and white. So it's even increasing the difficulty. And the person said also, the second point is that people want to know about the future. But think about normal situation when you think about the future, independently of the accident. This is probably something which is the most difficult in the life of a person. What do I want to be when I will be old? This is the question of young people. Should I be a medical doctor or should I be a lawyer? This is the type of question that people are facing all the time. And in the case of an accident, it's of course exacerbated. But to think about the future, to think about what should I do in the future, is a so difficult question, even independently of a situation like Fukushima. So people are confronted to two basic questions. What about the radiation? And extremely difficult to find a clear answer. And what about the future? Extremely difficult. So, how to get out of this difficulty? I think that it was expressed by many of you. The only way is working together, is sharing emotions, is sharing information, is confronting different points of view to try to make one smile. But to make one smile, you cannot do that alone. I mean, even if you are alone, you read books, you listen to the others. You know, you need the others to make your mind. Alone, you cannot do that. So I think probably during this day, what I heard is that here, clearly, Minamisoma is facing a complex situation due to a lot of divisions. It's a way to condense a lot of dimensions. But there is also, I think this was clearly identified that there is, to overcome that, there is a need to do things together. And I think the lessons from Norway are clear. You know, it's important. Then I will express very briefly 3 points. I was very surprised during this day that only very few people, very few participants gave information about their individual exposures. People talked about concentration, ambient dose rates, CPM, and so on and so on and so on. But no one said anything about individual exposures.
Why?
Yes, Mr. Suzuki. But Mr. Suzuki is, has already was with us a long time ago, so we went through a process. But here, it's clear that nobody, I mean, you are living in a contaminated environment, and you have a lot of interrogation about the potential impact about this contamination on your health. But I think that the only way to try to clarify the situation is to know how much I receive from exposure. And it's not a matter of measurings everywhere. Of course, this gives a lot of information, but at the end of the day, this is what you receive. And I think this is very important that you go through this process of wearing individual dose meters and trying to know what are your individual doses, and from there to discuss with the others where it comes from, why there are differences between you and me, and we are neighbors. Why? Is it because of the house, the contamination of the house, or is it because we have different professions and we don't do exactly the same thing? This is the way that people can tame the situation. And I was on the same line. It was noticed that whole body counting was not really popular in the place. And the whole body counter at the end of the day, this is how you can check. This is the final check with regard if your environment, if the food is contaminated or not. You can make measurements and so on, but at the end, this is the only way to know. And I think this is very important, and I have in mind the experience of the Switzerland people, for example, that have been through this process. It's long. It needs a lot of efforts, but at the end of the day, this is a way to recover and to turn from a lot of questions to what can we do, actions. I think we have been successful, another comment, we have been successful in organizing this dialogue. The idea was to discuss about the situation and the challenges of Minamisoma, but it was also to share experience between various places in Japan, but also experience with Norway. And I think that was very successful. I think you brought your experience. It's not over. You will have still discussions, and we will go on tomorrow. But I think it was this part of the objective of the dialogue is quite successful. And the final point, very brief. I think there is a word that came out, 2 words, community pride. I think this is something to be meditated this evening by all of us, because my feeling is that the success is in what we can share in common. So, thank you very much for being so patient. It was a very dense day, and now we are moving for having a good moment, or to sharing a good moment together, have good food, good drink, and see you tomorrow morning.